but from a marketing perspective, how you're going to address that objective as a company to meet that result. You have to have control from a performance indicator in order for you to be tracking down if you're hitting those goals or not. The ultimate number that upper management wants to see is the ROI. What's my return for investment? How many sales we're making? How are your efforts substantiated for the expense of the company? Because again, it has to be an investment and not an expense.
How do you optimize your customer's journey, drive demand, reduce churn rate, increase retention, and generate growth? Are some of the questions marketers continuously ask.
Welcome to the Customer XP Crew Weekly Podcast, where we discuss marketing strategies, tactics, ideas, experiences, invite guests and experts to help you with your marketing growth by being customer-centric. And now to this episode.
Hello, Juan, and to all of our listeners, welcome back to another episode of the Customer XP Crew, your weekly podcast about everything customer-centric. Today, we'll discuss with Juan, our marketing director expert, the topic of showing marketing impact, which I'm sure a lot of people would like to learn about these efforts that we do in our businesses and how to monitor them, track them, and to show real-time evidence and effectiveness. So, Juan, welcome.
Hey, how you doing, Sebastian? How's everything on
Good.
your side? How's
Great.
good?
Great.
Awesome.
Very glad to have you again here.
Awesome. Yeah, I think working remotely, it's good. It's also awesome to do it. Like you can be just anywhere, internet connection, and we get together like this, and
Yes.
it's just fabulous. I think it just creates that sense of connectedness, but also while being at whatever place you want to be.
Yeah. And to think a couple of 100 years ago, people had to write a letter and expect even months for that people to reply. And even in the case that the person actually gets the letter, right?
Correct. So, um, I'm here to discuss today to the what is marketing impact and really find out what it is. I think marketing impact is really showing results. And bottom line is that like all your marketing effort should show a result, but results differ from every company. Like every company has a different objective, different key results they want to hit, different objectives they want to meet. So when we say marketing impact is how are you showing results based on your company's goals, needs, objectives, and tasks that you are doing in order to fulfill whatever it is that you want to reach?
There is a phrase I found online recently that goes, marketing should be seen as an investment rather than a cost. And I agree. Uh, and I also believe that whenever you make an investment, you expect to see some results in return, right?
Yes, I think marketing, as you said, is an investment. If it's a cost, then probably you're doing it wrong
Absolutely.
because the way to see this is just on a perspective from anything that you go on business on. It's you make a certain investment in order for it to create some fruition at the end. In this case, marketing is your vehicle to reach a mass audience and bring an ROI to your company. That's the bottom end result, which it translates on different tasks that need to be done, obviously, from an execution standpoint to really deliver the results you want. So let's dig a little bit deeper on showing marketing impact. And by showing marketing impact, we really have to go to the basics. first we have to really understand what the objectives of the company are, what are the key results that we want. So I don't know if there's a term that you might be familiar with, but like OKRs, like create objectives and key results, in order for your company to address them with its marketing efforts, and obviously across the whole organization. But from a marketing perspective, how you're going to address that objective as a company to meet that result. So once you get that down from an OKR, you have to set a plan, a marketing plan or marketing efforts that will get you closer to that objective, and obviously to those key results. So how are you going to meet those key results? Then once you set that strategy, you execute it, and you have to keep on monitoring it with different KPIs, key performance indicators, where we want to make sure that in the different disciplines of marketing, you are doing what it is correct. And you might have this in-house, or you might have a vendor doing this for you, but you have to have control from a performance indicator in order for you to be tracking down if you're hitting those goals or not. And like that, you start showing marketing impact, because the idea is to always optimize these efforts in order for you to get to the key results, which is what you stated at the beginning.
Would you say that this phase or this stage of measuring, tracking, and reporting results or evidence is something that you do even in the strategy outline stage? Because some people might believe like, okay, we do these investments, these marketing efforts, and let's see how it goes. But behind the curtains, what some people may not know is that all of these efforts are already planned out, or they are already outlined.
Well, I think one of the most critical things that, as a marketing director who is like orchestrating, or a marketing executive who is orchestrating the whole marketing team, it's really understand what are the strengths within their team and know what you can do and outsource. If there's an expertise you lack and it might be difficult to hire that talent, you might go to really good agencies out there that can really provide that that gap for you, that expertise for that gap that you have, in order for you to supply that need and fill it up, and get to that key result. And like any scientific method, so marketing for me, it's like a scientific method. You have these hypotheses, which are the key objectives, I mean the key results you wanna align to and that you wanna reach. And then you go out and do these efforts and test continuously with different efforts to get to that key result. What happens is, like in a scientific method, is you go back and you check your data that you got with your hypotheses, and you say, okay, is it time to pivot, or are we doing something wrong? And if we're doing something wrong, then you optimize it and you go back again and execute it a little bit different, or a lot different. I don't know, whatever is the data that you're showing. And if you analyze your data, you might find really good opportunity to really enhance the efforts that you're doing. So you go back, you redo the testing, and if you're now hitting your results or actually surpassing them, then great for you. Your hypothesis has been confirmed and you're hitting those key results. So again, it's like a scientific method. You have to have an objective. If you're just doing it without a plan, there's also a saying that is very popular, and it says, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So that's something that you need to have in order for you to be creating. Yeah, it's something that we really need to have in order to create marketing impact.
Agreed. I have right here a question from one of our listeners, and it pertains what you just said, and is um, how often should you analyze the results and marketing efforts? Is there like an standard, or it varies or depends on something else?
It really varies. I think there's not a particular standard, but for example, for me, what works is I look at it once. For example, let's go to a particular example. Let's say I launch a campaign and it's something that I'm tracking and I really know, for example, what I want to get, and if it's trying to make sense, I might look at it every hour to see if it's hitting whatever I'm trying to do to test out with a little budget and before I start funding that campaign to make it a bigger budget campaign. So I might be testing something, and so that I kind of review every hour. Whereas I know a full-blown campaign, I might be checking it at the beginning every day, and then once I know it starts working and it seems promising, then I might check it every week. So it really depends on what is it that you're testing. Again, have a hypothesis for everything you do and you're testing out with an audience, and the interval at which you are, or the frequency at which you are measuring results, it varies. It really depends on whatever efforts you're doing and if you're accumulating enough data to make a decision.
Great. And something a bit more specific. Is there like a once you're analyzing the results that you are getting, is there like a threshold that you can compare to your results to determine that these are good results, or is there like a proportion of your investment that you should look out in order to say, okay, this is giving the exact result that I was looking for?
That's an amazing question, to be honest. First of all, there are benchmarks, and there are reports out there that vary by industry in which they tell you different metrics that you can get. There's also reports that you can buy in order for you to more or less get a sense of what those benchmarks are for your industry. The more niche, the the more precise, but it also might be harder for you to find that information available online for free. So you might have to get a report and pay for it. Or just if you have a lot of campaigns within your organization and you have not accumulated and analyzed this data, like look at it, compile it, and make sure that you get whatever averages your and for different types of metrics. So what's your average cost per click, like your CPC? What's your average CPM? What's your average cost of acquisition? So all those kind of things you can really accumulate even in from data that you've done prior, and you have your own kind of data to go against and benchmark yourself against it. If you want to go, obviously you should also look into industry reports and see what is the benchmark or the CPM, the CPC, the CTR for these different industries that you might be in, and see if you're meeting those or exceeding those, or are you below them as well. So that's a good way to like grade yourself on your performance.
Yeah, and for people who might be wondering, why do I have to pay for these industry reports? I would say information is power. And I believe that nowadays, even more so. Don't you think so?
Yeah, I think information it's a great resource. By all means, we all seek information. We educate ourselves continuously to become better. And if you're not doing so, then you're stagnant and you become antiquated and you're gonna become obsolete. So it's always critical to continue to educate yourself and gain more information. So if you have this type of information available, and the internet makes it so much more available. So just go out and grab it, and if it's not available for free, find out a way to get it from your company. Like ask your manager if you can purchase it, and make a obviously a case for it in order for you to spend this money to acquire this type of information.
Agreed. And what's your take on partnership? And do you believe that working with partnerships and allies affects or change the expectations in terms of results that you're looking for? For instance, a while ago you talked about launching a campaign. So when you take into account that you're working with a partner or with allies, do you believe that affects the way that you should perceive your actual results?
Um, to answer that question, I think it's a two-part question. First of all, you need to make sure that whoever you partner with goes along with your brand and it brings a benefit and it's a win-win situation for
Exactly.
you. Obviously, for example, I was approached recently to be a guest on a podcast, but even though the podcast has a lot of viewers, it has a lot of traction, the audience and the way and the format of the podcast does not align with what we are at marketing.
Mhm.
And even though they're very successful podcasts, I'm not gonna partner up to be there because it just doesn't resonate with our brand values. So that for me it's a no-no, and I appreciated them reaching out to us to invite me and have marketing being part of their podcast, but that doesn't create or doesn't convey the same values that we have, and then there's a disruption. So first of all, you have to get win-win situations whoever you're creating a partnership. Obviously, if your partner is more established, or it brings an opportunity for you to reach an audience that you're not grabbing, and the same goes to them, or whatever they see fit as their strategy of creating this partnership, it's gonna obviously resonate more because that trust that you have or they have, it's going to be translated to the audience that they reach, and that's going to create a compelling result for you based on the execution that you do.
Exactly. Now that you mentioned a while ago, the marketing director, the guy behind the orchestra, uh, who does he report to, and what will be the actual ways that this marketing director presents these results?
Well, marketing directors, depending on the size of the company, report to different upper management uh, people. So basically, they normally report either to the VP of marketing or the chief marketing officer, or if the firm's smaller, they just might report directly to the president or CEO of the company. So mm, but by all means, all marketing directors, they report to upper management. So directors play a huge role on how the organization is viewed, not only from a external standpoint but also from an internal standpoint. I think good marketing directors create great internal marketing as well as external marketing. And the way that they report success, at least in my point of view, is you're creating internally a better culture. Your communication is on par across the company. And from an external standpoint, you are delivering the results that you present to them, I guess, on a monthly basis to the executive board, where you are making a case for the marketing efforts that are being done throughout that month and how those tasks and execution that you're performing, it's reaching the objectives and the key results that the business has.
Exactly. And what would you say? It's like the general overview when presented these results. What maybe two or three, like what are the main things that a marketing director presents to the people he reports to?
Well, one of them is, what is their take as a marketing department? What was the strategy behind it, their thinking, their thought process, and why they did the things that they did. Um, so, once that is comes across, like all that thought process, then you show the results. You show it's like a story, right? You build a story, and then you're gonna back it up with data. So, for example, you say we went out on this go-to-market strategy, believing X, and the efforts that we did were we partnered with this, we launched a campaign with that, and the results that we got was this because based on our research, our market research, and our customer research, we found out that people like this and this and that. So we created these pieces, and these are the results that we got. And then you showcase whatever results you got, you substantiate those results. If you met your objectives, then you give a reasoning for why you met those objectives and how you can actually optimize that in order to bring more of those results. If you didn't meet those objectives, then give the reasoning why you didn't meet those objectives and what you're going to do in order for you to create a compelling statement next time and deliver the results that you want the next time you meet with the board. So it's always about creating a story behind the data that you're showing and the reasoning to how you approach this and what you can do in order to improve the results that you're substantiating.
We talked on a previous episode about customer retention. Do you believe customer retention relates to showing marketing impact?
Absolutely. I think everybody just wants to have demand generation and demand generation. And we talk about creating new customers and new customers and new customers. But I think most organizations should really focus on customer experience. Because if there's no customer retention, there's no growth. Even if you're bringing 1,000 customers, but next month
They come and go.
they go, then you're back to square one. So the idea is to have amazing demand generation. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, it's huge, but most importantly is how you retain the majority of your customers. How do you keep them happy? How what are you doing from a marketing standpoint to stay relevant and stay top of mind? How do you make their lives easier every time? And how can you improve it every single day in order for them to make themselves more acquainted with you, more loyal to you, and by all means, like love you and represent you and be a salesman for you without a paycheck. Like if they are really happy with you and you retain them, then they're gonna be your best salesman because they're gonna be preaching about you with their friends, with their colleagues, and that's obviously gonna drive more business.
Awesome. I got a final question from one of our listeners, and I think it's really good. And it's what will be like more shallow or superficial ways to determine the effectiveness of your marketing without going into the numbers. And I can think of one, and is that when you're working with retail and you run out of stock, that's a sign of success that what you were doing was right. But maybe there's more to it, and there's more behind that, because okay, maybe you run out of stock, but you don't have enough supplies to replace and back that up. So I think it's more complex than
Mm-hmm.
that.
Correct. I think just qualitative data. Ask your customers why they love your brand, why they choose you time and time again, and their behavior. Like if you see from, let's say, from a SaaS perspective, if you see active users staying more time and using your tool, like is it because they're having difficulty with the tool, or is it because they really love it and they want to stay more time? So I think it's really getting to that qualitative data and having feedback from your customers that really is going to tell you what their thoughts are. Because quantitative data, like, oh, measure from 1 through 10, how was your experience? Normally, the outliers are easy to pick because the people who are really good fans of you, they're going to choose a 9 or a 10 really easy. And the ones that don't like you are going to choose a 0, a 1, or a 2. But what happens in the middle? Those are the undecided ones. And that's where the real data is going to come in, onto understanding really your customer and seeing why is it that they're iffy about it. And you have to make sure you have efforts in order to collect customer data and their feedback from a quantitative way, not only from a, I mean, from a qualitative way, not only from a quantitative way.
And we can really emphasize enough to our listeners how crucial is to have everything backed by data. Absolutely everything. I was remembering. I remember when Spotify was not popular at the beginning, and suddenly they saw a huge increase in subscriptions. At that exact point, they didn't have the platform to provide an Excel service to that amount of subscriptions that they suddenly got, like thousands and thousands. So they had to take a step back and to make a lot of changes in order to satisfy that demand. So I believe that even if you are doing like powerful, very effective efforts, you should measure everything, and you have to even measure the capacity or the bandwidth that you have to deal with a possible huge demand of
Upsearch, yeah,
opportunities.
correct. But just to make a huge summary about marketing impact,
Mm-hmm.
I think first of all, you need to create a plan. That's first and foremost. And you have to have a plan. After you have a plan, it's go out, test different marketing. Well, first, let me go back. Like measure your team. What are their capabilities? So you really understand what they're good at and what you need to outsource in order to cover that gap that you might not have right now. Once you set that out, then align all these efforts in-house and outsource and start launching all these campaigns or whatever other these efforts that you want to do that will get you closer to that result. Measure. And like you said, data is very important, but not only quantitative data, but also qualitative data to make sure that you are really hearing the opinion of your customers. And then from there, continuously build up. So you're always optimizing and making sure you're delivering the results. And if not, pivot or create another hypothesis of how you're gonna do things differently to make sure you hit those key results. Because ultimately, a marketing department, it's gonna be measured by its bottom line, So once you start reporting to upper management, they really want to see the numbers and how it's impacting their business and what's the ROI. Because at the end of the day, the ultimate number that upper management wants to see is the ROI. What's my return for investment? How many sales we're making? How are your efforts substantiated for the expense of the company? Because again, it has to be an investment and not an expense. So there might be a learning curve, obviously, but effective leadership is what is going to drive the results that you want as a company.
Awesome. And that's a wrap. Thanks again, Juan, for having you here. Awesome to have you. And to all of our listeners, thank you for staying and listening. If you liked it, please share, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next episode of the Customer XP Crew, your weekly podcast about everything customer centric. And stay tuned. Thanks again, and bye bye.
Goodbye. Thank you, Sebastian. Thank you to our listeners. Bye bye.